Today is Cinco de Mayo. The day means something a whole lot different to me since 4 years ago. I've been kind of knowing that I wanted to do this when I started vlogging, but I was most concerned about this video because of the people I love and the potentiality that it has to hurt them. So please, if you don't want to hear anything that'll hurt you, then just beg out now. Jump ship. Run away. Um, I want to talk about it because it is a really big thing, and a big thing that happened to me. And I want to talk about it because it was chock full of miracles. So, courage brought to you by Diet Coke. I am not affiliated. I hope that doesn't get me in trouble. Anyway, May 5th, 4 years ago was a big day. And there were some things going on in my life that came to a head. And I decided to bail. So that's a little inkling of what you're going to hear about. If that kind of thing bothers you, please go on to another video. It was not my first attempt on my life. It will be the last. I've had many attempts, and Heavenly Father brought me through a couple of them, and some I just chickened out. So, but this one, I went into it with zero tolerance on chickening out. I was going to end my life. And so I live near the Mississippi River. One of the bridges had been closed due to flooding. Because if the floodwaters get so high, they close the bridges. And that's what happened here. I drove there after I left my job. And took a while to get there because some of the highways were closed due to flooding. So I had to take this roundabout way to get there. And anyway, I finally made it to the bridge. And there's a visitor center near the bridge. So I left a note in the car stating my name, what my intention was. I gave him my husband's name and phone number, to collect the car after. Left the window cracked away so that they didn't have to break a window to get in. And this was at 10 o'clock at night. And there was nobody there. Nobody. And that was my objective. This bridge you cannot walk on when it's in service. There's no room, and especially semis that go across it. If you have two semis crossing, or going against each other on there's no room for nothing. It's an older bridge, and for this bridge to be inoperable at the time or not used at the time was quite an event, because it's a thoroughfare, for getting east to west. So anyway, it was a smaller town, so it wasn't one of the big bridges, but it was a very old bridge. It's still in use. Anyway, it spans the width of the Mississippi River. Aside from that, speed it up. So I get out there, and I'm alone on the bridge, which in itself was amazing. And I'm looking over the railing and, thinking about it. And just in the forefront of my mind, it wasn't this heavy suicide scene, because I had basically marched out there with zero tolerance for backing out. That's all I kept telling him. Nope, no backing out. Nope, nope, nope. And so I went to the north side of the bridge to make sure no trees were coming down or barges. I didn't want to land on anything like that. And, the river was in flood. So often there are big things that come down the river. And there wasn't anything in the river other than the water. And so I went to cross back to my side, the south side of the bridge, and getting ready to jump. And I had this really miraculous experience. In front of me, they call it a life review, but in front of me, I saw these images of me as through the different stages of my life. And with each one of these images that would flash, I felt like Heavenly Father was standing behind me and saying, "Oh, I remember when you were that old, and oh, look at you there. Remember you used to grind your teeth," and just these adoring Father comments that went along with the different images that I saw. And it was so much love. It was so beautiful. And then the book was done, and, I felt his love, but then I felt him step back, and it was my will. I walked again to the other side of the bridge to make sure nothing was coming. And as I'm coming back to my side, the south side of the bridge, a spotlight catches me in the light. And I assumed that a police officer had found my note and was out there on the bridge with his flashlight. And so he caught me and we both froze. And we're standing there for a few seconds. And then all of a sudden he started running towards me. And so I just up in the water and down, up over the bridge and down into the water. And I smacked it hard. It was probably a 50-foot drop on moving water like that. It was like hitting cement. And I went under the water and it hurt. And I came up pretty much laughing because I don't know if I thought the jump would have killed me, but I don't know. It seemed funny to me that I just popped right back up and ow, it hurt. The water was cold, which was wonderful because it, dulled the pain. But anyway, I'm floating there in the water because the water is moving so fast. When the Mississippi is in flood, it moves fast. It moves fast anyway, but it's like triple the speed. And so there's a train track there, and the prison was just north of there, and the train was firing up. And I hollered once, but nobody could hear me. And so I was like, well, whatever. So I'm floating down the river, and I'm having this discussion with Heavenly Father. And he's like, well, before that, it was like, I knew I wasn't going to be able to drown myself. I've been swimming since I was 2 years old, swim team, doing laps. I'm an excellent swimmer. So I knew I was not, my body would not allow me to drown itself. So, so Heavenly Father's like, do you really want to die? And I'm kind of like, I'm in the river. And he asked me the question, do you really want to die? And not from me in my top of mind, but somewhere deep inside of me, the answer was no, I don't want to die. He says, okay, I'll help you get out of this. And so I started swimming towards the shore, and I was cautioned not to do that. And it's super dangerous there. I wouldn't live if I went to the shore. And so I just kind of let the river take me, and I was looking at the moon and just kind of soaking up being in the middle of the Mississippi River, and just kind of soaking up the experience. It wasn't this sad, icky. I mean, I knew I'd gone off the edge, but it wasn't horror, scary, dark, anything. In fact, evil was not on the river at all. And I've gone a couple miles, and the spirit says, okay, uh, in order for you to get out of this, you need to swim as close as you can to the edge. Don't go all the way. And see that building there and that light, go holler for help. So I swam over to the edge towards that building, and I, started screaming for help. Well, luckily that person had the window open, and he said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in the water." And he says, "You're in the water?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in the water." Well, then the water just pushed me right out. And that's what happens on the shores. The water's just meant to push you out. That's why you don't get in the Mississippi. You don't wade in it. You don't put your foot in it, because it will suck you right out and you can't get back. And people die. The percentage of people that come out of that river that go in is like almost nothing. So it pushed me right back out, and I just floated along. And I remember a stick coming up, and I beat that stick up. But anyway, I'm going down the river, and I hear a fire truck, and I'm like, wow, they're having a rough time tonight. And I thought, they might be here for me. But I'm already now probably half mile past there. I'm like, what are they going to do? Throw out a ladder, And so I just, disregarded it, and floating down the river, and, there's no buildings or lights on either side now. And the spirit says, "See over there, that outcropping of trees?" He's like, "You're going to have to swim to those trees in order to make it. If you go past those trees, you're not going to make it." I'm like, okay. Well, I had watched shows on how to swim with a riptide. So I started swimming as you do with a riptide. You inch, an inch, an inch, an inch your way over. I'm getting closer to the end of the trees, and I'm starting to get really tired. And that's when the spirit says, "Dig, girl, dig, dig, dig." And so I did. I dug, and I swam as hard as I possibly could. Even though I was tired, just swam. And I reached a branch, and I got a hold of it, and I gently pulled my body up to it instead of yanking at it. And then, got a hold of another branch, and was able to get myself into the trees. Now, these trees normally would be on dry ground, but because of the flooding, they were half up of water. So I am basically in the mid to upper branches of the tree. And so I'm pulling myself deeper into trees, and I found a good one, and I put my legs in between branches and my arms in between branches, and wedged myself in as good as I could. And then I just started to rest because I was really tired. And as I'm kind of just resting there, of course, I am cold. I am beyond cold. There's a part where you stop shivering. And so it's like, you were so cold, you were shivering the whole way, and now you aren't shivering as much. And so that's kind of where I was at. And so I'm sitting there in my tree, and I see a light go by, and I'm like, oh, because I'm in a dreamy state. Oh, there goes a river barge. How cool. I get to see this from this vantage. And so then it goes by, and then a little bit later, the light comes back up, the boat and the light comes back up, and I'm like, oh, they might be looking for me. So I have this really loud dog whistle that I do. I want to do it on here, but I don't know if it'll hurt the video. I'm going to try. Hopefully that didn't hurt. Anyway, I was making noises like that to get them to hear me. It's something I saw in that Titanic movie. Twice that whistle has saved me. And so they heard it, and they're like, keep screaming. So I kept whistling. And they were able to find which tree I was in, and they came uh, to get me. Two of the firemen jumped in the water with, all their stuff on, and they threw a ring around me, and which was tied to the boat, and they said, "Okay, now let go of the tree." And I wouldn't let go of the tree. And they're like, "You're gonna have to let go of the tree." It took about 3 pumps for me to let go of the tree. And they were trying to get me over the front of the boat, which was a square front boat. And after a couple attempts, I'm like, "Guys, we're going to have to go over the side," which is not an ideal thing, because it can capsize more easily. But they swung me around to the side, and there's this big older fireman dude, and I apologized to him. I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm a big girl." And he told me, he says, "Don't you dare apologize." And they got me up on the boat, and he had whipped off his hoodie, sweatshirt hoodie, and just put it right on top of me. No arms in anything, just covered me right up. My head was in the cap and everything. And they laid me down on the backboard. And so I was laying down in the boat. I had a fireman who was to my left, kind of laying on his side. They loaded the other fireman, and then there was a fireman kind of laying on his side to my right. And so everybody got back on, and they backed up and started heading up river, and that cold air hit me. And I knew the spirit's like, "You're not going to make it." So I turned to the fireman to the right of me, and I said, "Can you lay on top of me?" And without a thought, he just rolled over like that on top of my body. I think my face was in between his calves, and he created a barrier for the wind, but I also was able to suck all of his heat out. And he really kept me alive for that ride back. They unloaded me and put me in the ambulance, and she had that heat cranked up so high on that ambulance that it was just, oh, amazing to go into that warmth. By the time I got to the hospital, they're cutting things off and clothes off of me and all this. My body temperature was 34 degrees. I'd been in the water for 2 hours, and I'd gone 5 miles down the Mississippi River, and I lived through it. What I have to say about all of it was, I had been suicidal for a good part of my life. I always felt like if I did do it, that Satan would win. I feel like that probably was his objective. The things that he said to me, those evil spirits of his and him himself, were horrible. And they knew exactly what to say. They knew me. They know all of us. Because their spirits were created when our spirits were created. They got banished to this earth without ever having the opportunity for a body. And so they've spent their lives trying to tear us down because of their hatred, because of their regret. So they knew exactly what to say to me. And on that day, with everything that was going on in life, I mean, I've been through much worse, but on that day, I was just vulnerable, and I listened. And in a way, I will say I walked hand in hand with him on that bridge. I was beguiled, but I was a fool because I let myself be beguiled. But it was a moment of weakness. And so I did that. I chose the bridge because it was closed due to flooding, so there would be no people there. I went at 10 o'clock later because the visitor center closes at 10. So there would be nobody there. Whenever I contemplated suicide, I had rules. Nobody could be involved. I would never run my car into a semi because then that guy could get hurt or surrounding traffic. But even if not, this guy's got to live with that for the rest of his life. I could not inflict that on anyone. It had to be a solitary act. But what I learned was it was no solitary act at all. I'd put those 2 firemen who went into that water during flooding, something they never would ever have wanted to do. I put their lives at risk. I put everyone in that boat's life at risk. And then when I did get to the ER, my ER nurse that I had, her mother had killed herself. And here she is, taking care of someone who had basically tried to do the same thing. And that nurse was tough love. She was mad at me. But she also was very protective of me, like a mama bear. That night took a toll on her. We kept the circle low about who knew what happened in my circle of people. You know, they tightened a circle around me because I was a little out of my head at the time. So not many people got to know about it. But the people that did know about it poured their love out upon me. Instead of judging me and being angry with me, they were so happy it didn't work. And they were very loving and supportive with me. And to this day, I've not had any of them throw it in my face and accuse me and be nasty about it. So suicide is not a solitary act. It's a blast, and there's a blast zone, and everybody gets covered with it. And for that, I regret the harm that I did to others. But when I think about that time, I want to go up there today. Every year I go up there to that bridge as a memorial. Not a memorial of I did this horrible thing, but a memorial that while I was on the water, Heavenly Father was with me every step of the way. I never was alone in the water, ever. There were these shooting stars, although they weren't as high in like space, they were low. And there were these shooting stars that started one at a time, and then 2 and 3, and they were all going from the Missouri side to the Illinois side. And they were there and there, and I kept looking at them in amazement, but I had to quit looking at them because me turning my neck that way was going to make me pass out. So I had to stop doing that. But I'd turn a bit and look at the stars, the shooting stars, or the spirits that were guiding me to Illinois. It was the most incredible experience being cradled in my Heavenly Father's hands. There was no doubt that I was going to live. It was a gentle moment. I don't know that it worked that way for anyone else, but it worked that way for me. And so when I go up there and I honor that bridge and that space, it's because I'm also honoring God and me on the water. So I wanted to share that experience. Nobody had any clue of the intensity of pain that I had, emotional pain I had in my life. Nobody ever thought I would do something like that. All of that I kept inside, kept hidden. My husband knew. I mean, he's asked to live with me. And some friends know that I had struggles and that I get dark. But no, it was a big surprise. Everybody says, why don't you ask for help? And they've got all these suicide, call somebody, or if you know somebody in pain. That never worked for me. And I don't ask for help. So right there, that's a problem. And when I did reach out, because I did, it was so obscure, and you had to really be thinking that to get that idea. And the notes I wrote on the way up there, one guy, Jason, he got it, and he mobilized friends here, and they were doing what they could from down here, this end, to try to find me. And they did. They found me in the hospital. But yeah. So yeah, all that hype about if you're in trouble, ask for help, which I highly, highly encourage you, because somebody will listen. And people are being educated now, so they will listen. You have to reach out. For me, I guess I just needed to be a little more clear, or I wanted to be saved. But yeah, you don't want, it was unsuccessful for me. And it was a miracle that it was unsuccessful for me. You go in that river, you don't get out. And that's just a fact. Everybody who lives near that river knows that. It's a miracle I got out. Heavenly Father wanted me to live. Anyway, thank you for your time. And I love you.